So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And didn't expect this one. Is exactly what the emotions I'm going through at the moment, because we know that Amadou Onana has been linked to Aston Villa previously. And at the time, I said I just didn't think it was somebody that we would sign. I thought would be gazumped by bigger teams or by teams with more financial clout. And I thought that maybe he might want to try his look outside of the UK. But David Ornstien has just dropped a bomb today and said that Aston Villa are in the final stages, or in advanced negotiations, to quote him correctly, for Amadou Onana from Everton. And we did a podcast yesterday asking, was the next wave of Aston Villa transfers on its way? And this one is probably the statement signing for Aston Villa so far this season. Ian Maatsen has come through the door. The two young kids from the two guys that we got, should I say, in return for Douglas Luiz, also statement signings from the amount of potential that they have. But Onana is somebody that's very, very well respected across Europe. 22 years of age, big, massive guy, a different type of player to Douglas Luiz, and we'll talk about it in a moment. But it might signify a change potentially in how Aston Villa and Unai Emery want to approach this season. But an exciting change. This guy has all the potential in the world. He's also an enforcer from that point of view. Like everybody has seen his interview, whereby the interviewer got his name wrong, and then in a surprisingly London accent, Amadou Onana comes back to him and says, "That's not my name, mate." So he's got a bit of a chirpiness about him. And on the field, when you see him play, obviously, he utilizes his huge frame. He utilizes like he's a Hulk in the middle of the field. The day that Diego Carlos got injured, did his Achilles tendon, was the day that Amadou Onana made his debut for Everton, and he came on that day, and he completely ran roughshod through our midfield as a 20-year-old. Big man, came in, completely changed the game for Everton. I'm almost certain that when he came on, they actually did score their goal, the own goal at the back post. But he was involved in that. And his time at Everton has been one of, I suppose, turmoil. It's not easy being a young kid at a club like that, and needing to be the person, I suppose, really that kind of drives everything on. Everybody knew he was a good player, at the club. Everybody was expecting massive things from him, but the club couldn't get out of their own way. And realistically, until Sean Dyche came into the club, they didn't really get their act together. Last season, they did get their act together in a lot of, I suppose, really from a structural point of view. They got more structure, and obviously that's what Sean Dyche brings in. And Onana worked really well in that. He was, how will I put it? His presence in midfield was very much felt whenever you played against Everton. He was somebody who would, like, he's not going to be the Douglas Luiz, play that triangle in midfield, end up at the edge of the area, or ghost in the back post and pop it in and score goals that way. He's not that type of player. And the reason I'm talking about Douglas Luiz is I think that, and me personally, I think that we all kind of expected there would be almost a like-for-like replacement from Douglas Luiz. And if this is the signing based on what he's done previously with Belgium, as we've seen him play for Belgium in the Euros, what he's done with Everton, that's not his game. Currently, that's not his game. Can he develop that side of his game? Who knows? Maybe Unai Emery might be able to coax that out of him. Maybe Boubacar Kamara becomes that player. Maybe he's able to play a small bit further forward. But and I'm only formulating an awful lot of my thoughts about this. I know we've been linked to them previously, but I didn't really think about it because I didn't think it was going to happen. So I'm going to really kind of formulate my thoughts here on the stream now. So with regards to Onana, it does to me signify a bit of a shift in how we want to play in midfield. I'm going to come back to it again. From the point of view of who Unai Emery has seen us set up, he probably knows that we were bullied a small bit in midfield. Definitely bullied from corners. You bring a guy in who's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". I've seen him listed at in some instances. That's going to help you from corners, both in an attacking sense and both from a defensive sense as well. For somebody that tall, he's incredibly rangy getting around the field. Let me bring up his stats sheet here, and we can take a look at him. So he's incredibly rangy getting around the field. You look at his heat map there. Obviously, in the more defensive areas, doesn't really. There's once again with a lot of players, a lot of disciplined players, and it shows great discipline from him. It does seem like as if there's an electric fence that he doesn't go past when he goes into the attacking half, which is fine, and we need that kind of cudgel for our defense. Or that defensive blanket for our defense. But see how he gets around the field. He is very much a player that can get around the field. 6'6", 6'5", 6'4", whatever he is, he's very rangy. You know, he's got quite a long stride, but he's also fast. You know, he's not a plodder in the midfield. A lot of the reasons that I think Leander Dendoncker over time has been, I'm not going to say found out, but I think that teams will attack him, is that sometimes he takes too long to get turned, whereas Onana is an athletic type of player. You know, his physicality is something that he embraces and that he uses as his strength. Being that towering presence in midfield. He wins duels, he wins battles, he wins aerial battles, things in the ground, shields the ball very effectively, can be a real kind of steadying influence in midfield from that point of view. Breaks up play excellently. I'm going to show you in a moment. I've did another slide. I was talking last night about Jaden Philogene and his defensive contributions. I did a slide with regards to a kind of advanced defensive contributions for Amadou Onana, and we'll look at it in a moment. But the way he breaks up play is something that I think will allow our wingers to get more involved in the game. Our wing backs, if we end up playing with a back three, will certainly be able to get more involved in the game here. And also, it should allow us to be more confident playing through the middle when you have a big presence like this here. If you've got somebody you know that can plug gaps in the middle of midfield, like this guy can do at 6 foot, whatever, he'll be able to take up a lot of space in there in midfield then. And it'll be a deterrent for teams to run directly through us. It'll be a deterrent when you come up against the likes of Manchester City and Rodri wants to just dictate play in the middle of midfield. Well, we've got our own Hulk in the middle of midfield who can try and get around players and unsettle players and stand down on top of the attacking-minded 10s that maybe are playing, or if a Harry Kane drops off. I know he's not in the league anymore, but I will never forget that game where Harry Kane just basically dropped off our two centre halves into kind of not a half space, but the space in behind where our defensive midfielder was, and picked up an awful lot of ball from there and just sprayed it to Son Heung-min out in the wings. And basically Tottenham just destroyed us by doing that. Having somebody like this in there will deter teams from doing that. And it'll also deter teams from going long and playing direct against you too. So, you know, from that point of view, it gives us a very, very steady base. Like, he's going to come in and he's going to play in this team. He's going to start in this team for 50 million, the rumored price, plus also the amount of experience he has in the Premier League. I think this guy is going to start from day one. It throws up more questions about what formation we are going to play. It really does. But that's not what today's conversation is about. One of the big things I like about Onana is, and it's kind of, it's seldom reported because he is seen as such a destroyer in the middle of midfield, is that when he gets the ball and he turns and he runs, and you can, like, on the stat sheet, it doesn't really show up here, but when he turns and when he runs at you, it's really, really, really powerful. You know, he will break lines. He will, like in a low block, if this guy is allowed to get forward into certain areas, he will, or mid block, should I say, he will break that mid block just because of his size if he takes that ball on. He doesn't get dispossessed an awful lot. So when he runs into tackles, or when he tries to run past the press, he gets past that press. I see here I've got the successful dribbles percentage here at 29%. I am 90% certain that that percentage is wrong and that I didn't change it on my sheet there. So I'm just going to check it up there just to make sure. Because when you watch him play, and if it isn't wrong and if it is correct, when you watch him play, he doesn't look like he's in the bottom third of players when he tries to actually take that ball on. Because he does get past players. He does it is correct actually at 29%, but he does get past players. He does break that mid block. Maybe he doesn't run too far past them, but just the size of him alone would allow us to get past those pesky blocks that last year we had to play triangles around, and those triangles can be very intricate. It means that there's more pieces involved in trying to play around a block like that, and if you do that and you get it wrong, then the counter attack is on. I just have to point you towards Cameron Archer's goal against Aston Villa for Sheffield United last year. So I can see an awful lot of reasons why we would be looking at an Amadou Onana. He's just so interesting. He's a multiple ball of clay still at 22 years of age, and somebody I think that the footballing world wants him. He's a specimen. He's a specimen. Once again, I've said it before, Unai Emery and Monchi are looking for the intangibles in players. You cannot teach somebody to be 6'6", have great pace, be rangy, athletic, and get around the field like Amadou Onana can do. There's something in the water in Senegal, Ghana, places in that western coast of Africa. There's something in the water there that just gives people a kind of supernatural ability to be athletic, and this guy has it, and you cannot teach that. And that's why first of all, that's why he's played an awful lot of games at a young age. He started off with Hoffenheim, then we moved to Hamburg, playing 14 games at 18 years of age because of his big physical stature. Moved to Lille, played 32 games at Lille at 19 years of age. Then had a 35 or 40 million euro move to Everton in 2022. Played 33 games in his first season. Played 30 games in his second season. At 22 years of age, he's played a hell of a lot of games. He's played 120 games at such a young age, and that's defining, I think, of the player that Unai Emery and that Aston Villa are looking at. Outside, really, of Samuel Illing Jr. and Baron Akea, and Lewis Dobbin, obviously, because, as I say, I think Lewis Dobbin was really a project player. But the players that we've bought are young players that have game time under their belts at different levels and different education paths, I suppose, really within football. And to me, that's exciting. Will it all work out? Who knows? But to me, the trajectory, or sorry, should I say the mindset with regards to football and talent identification is coming towards that. It's coming towards what can we get in a player that we just can't teach them. But we have seen they have an upward skill arc, or we have an upward arc from their footballing IQ. What can we get in those players? Can we bring them in and then let Unai do what he does best and has done best throughout his whole career, and that is train players, coach players, elevate players, and the profile of the player that we're looking for would have, as I said previously, would have played games would have played a decent amount of games previously and at a young age. This is another player that's under the age of 23. Ross Barkley, every player we've signed this off season, if I'm not mistaken, is under 23. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So that's an exciting piece in its own right. The further conversation I think we'll have on Amadou Onana is what does this mean for our midfield? Because I'm going to move on here to our advanced defensive stats. And I apologize, I threw all this together really, really quickly once the news broke today. I didn't have anything pre-done on this for the simple fact that I genuinely did not think that we were going to sign him. I had this one kind of filed away under going to go to a different team, a bigger team, and not going to go to Aston Villa. I thought he was nailed on that if Barcelona could get their money together, he was going to go to Barcelona. That's been fully transparent on it. But looking at his advanced defensive statistics, there aren't many better than him in the Premier League or in the top 5 leagues in Europe. from a defensive point of view. You just got to look at that. He's in the top 8% for the amount of tackles per game, in the top 16% in the amount of tackles won per game. His defensive midfield and attacking third tackles are just right up there. You know, he gets around the field. That just shows that he's not press reliant on where he is in the field. If you look at somebody like Leander Den Donker, he doesn't have the ability to get around the field like this and to be and to execute his press at all three levels in the field. Amadou Onana does, and that's really exciting as well. If we want to press high, we can send him forward, push Boubacar Kamara back, give him a break. You know, we obviously have John McGinn that's pressing higher forward. We know Yuri Tielemans can press higher forward. We've seen him do that as well. Interesting, if you look there on the right hand side, I just literally screen grabbed this and popped it in there to show that maybe Yuri Tielemans has been in Amadou Onana's ear all summer when he's been in the Belgian camp, because these two guys played together when Tielemans scored that goal against Romania. They also played together in the Ukraine game as well, together in that double pivot situation that Roberto Martinez likes to play. The big thing that jumps out from the advanced defensive statistics here is the aerial win percentage. He is one of the best midfielders to win the ball in the air in European football. And what have we struggled to do? Win balls in the air at every single level, whether it's been late runs into the box to try and score goals from headers. Like, I don't remember a hell of a lot of goals that we scored from headers. Ollie Watkins scored a beaut of a header. I can't even remember who it was against. The height that this guy will bring in the three phases of play is very, very beneficial. Obviously, you've got your set piece phase of play, your defensive phase of play, and your attacking phase of play. It's something we're missing, and it's something that we seem to have focused on. And look, why not go and get the best, if not the best, one of the five best aerial ball-winning capability players in European football? And he's 22 years of age. It's to me, the reason I showed this Belgian piece here as well is that, look, the guy who starred there is Kevin De Bruyne. And look, it's only a graphical piece, a diagrammatic piece, just to show that, listen, look, you get somebody in here like Amadou Onana, he's going to allow your attacking players and your more creative players freedom to go and do what they want to do. They don't have to think about maybe being in two phases. So if we have a support striker for an Ollie Watkins, if we sign a support striker for Ollie Watkins that maybe isn't your typical striker, maybe he's a striker come number 10 role, it allows them to be a bit more carefree when they have the ball at their feet. So if they do lose the ball, they do have this Hulk behind there. They've got Boubacar Kamara behind there. You know, if that was somebody like John McGinn that's there, maybe John McGinn is allowed press even higher again and be that flying the ointment up top to win that ball back, get that ball, maybe recycle it to the left hand side to a Morgan Rogers, to a right hand side to Leon Bailey, and then allow him to continue on into the box, flooding the box with attacking players, having somebody like an Amadou Onana in the team, or even getting him up there yourselves. Just because he's played this defensively under Sean Dyche is not an indictment of the fact that he can't do anything else. We know that Sean Dyche is a traditionally defensive and structurally based manager. Who's to say that we can't get this guy to play in a more elevated role? Could you imagine him playing in that 10 role at times if we needed to push him up there behind an Ollie Watkins and allow him be that person that's ghosting in at the back post? As I said before, I said at the start, that's not what he's done previously. And if that didn't come across correctly, that's what I meant to say. Is he's a different type of Douglas Luiz based on what we've seen in the Premier League. But as a 22-year-old, to kind of pigeonhole him in a specific situation, specifically with the flux that we're in, with the turnover of players that we've had, and having Unai Emery at the helm and Champions League football, it's just exciting to see what you could do with him. Albeit, I do expect him to start further back in the number 6 role. You know, the flexibility that players can have, or the flexibility that Unai Emery wants players to have, is really exciting. And if he does play in the 6 role, he allows the 10 to flourish. If Unai Emery decides to put him up, we're chasing the game, decides to put him up beside Ollie Watkins, well then brilliant. You've got a 6'6" battering ram up there that can do something like that, albeit in a situation where you go to the in case of emergency break glass button at the side of the dugout. I wanted as well just to show here, and as I say, I'm kind of formulating my thoughts here as we're talking, but I also wanted to show here the injuries. I've read an awful lot online since it's been linked about him. Oh, he's injured. Oh, he's injured. Oh, he's injured a lot. Oh, he's injury prone. If he can stay fit, this is big thing about him now is if he can stay fit. There's his injuries. He missed 6 games last year, or last year, all right. That is fair enough. But what's that? 11 games he's missed in his career. I'm not worried about injuries. I'm not worried about injuries at all for him. You have to take it into account when you've got somebody that's that tall. You know, the fact that obviously there's load on their body and on their joints and stuff like that at that height. It does have a more adverse effect. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about injuries at all. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that because this is a fluid and a breaking story really at the moment. I'm going to come back. I'm going to do a small bit more searching around on Onana. I'm going to watch a lot more. Like when you watch the Premier League, I haven't watched obviously much on him because you just watch what you see in the Premier League. A lot of Premier League players, but wouldn't mind going back and watching him play. Maybe more for Everton, more for Belgium anyway as well. I suppose really seeing him in a different setup to Sean Dyche because pigeonholing him towards that Sean Dyche setup I think is might be a small bit unfair, or it might be the best way to look at him because maybe that's what Unai Emery wants him to play, because Roberto Martinez is obviously set up at wing backs and at times obviously it's 4-2-3-1. But Castagna was always going forward, and he was able to distribute the ball that way as well. So I want to go and watch a small bit more about him. But this is a breaking story. This is something that's just kind of hot off the press. We'll see where it goes. I'm going to try and get 1 or 2 more people. I'm going to try and get the Unholy Trinity back on to talk about Amadou and Onana as well and see what his strengths are. I know a lot of you guys here are in the comments. Just taking a look at it here, guys. Apologies. I'm sorry, I don't. I didn't get to your comments there, guys, because I am on a tight leash here regards to the time. But I will watch them back afterwards again, and I will try and answer any of them that I can. But thanks ever so much, everybody, for your time. I do got to run away now, but yeah, it's exciting, as I said, to see a player like this. Be linked with Aston Villa. The Villa doing their transfer business in secret once more. This came out of nowhere for the main, so let's see how this one goes, and we will be back with any more breaking news over the course of the weekend before we get really back into the preseason stuff with Waltz on Wednesday. So thanks a million, everybody, for your time. I think we're all going to be glued to Twitter and glued to all the breaking news that will be coming maybe over the next few days, and I'm here for it, and I hope you guys will be here for it too. So thanks a million, everyone. Until we're back again, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the village.